Well, hello, my name is Catalina Herrera and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about digital transformation. So digital transformation is not necessarily about digital technology, but the fact that technology, which is digital, allows people to solve their traditional problems. Well, there is nothing more traditional than a piece of paper, for example. And that is because when we think about it, the clear majority of data is on a structure around organizations. Think about emails, videos, contracts, and so on. Now, having artificial intelligence systems that do things like classifying, grouping, and analyzing unstructured data is one of the primary use cases for machine learning. Let's take a look at an example of digital transformation. We will start the process with data that comes from paper as a contract, and then we will finish with the use of a business intelligence tool like Spotfire or Tableau or Power BI to enhance the outcome of this transformed data. So the application that we're gonna start with is called Provision Insights by ThoughtTrace. So if you go to thoughttrace.com and click on products, you will have a description of the platform, but basically it's a cloud-based application that is gonna extract and read, it's gonna read the contracts for you, for example, oil and gas leases, and then it will extract all the provisions, the data, in a way that it can be consumed. So in other words, you have a cloud-based application that uses artificial intelligence to transform unstructured data into structured data, which is for many companies the very first step into digital transformation. So the application looks like this. It's cloud-based, as I mentioned, and you have the possibility to drag and drop leases, one or multiple at the same time. You can actually, when submit this, have the possibility to select a document type and tags and attributes for that lease whenever you need to, but we're going to focus on the fact that you can actually read these leases now in a digital way, meaning you're going to be able to see all the extractions that the software did for you. So here you have your lease as it was before. You know, it originally could be a piece of paper that then was scanned, and now you have a PDF copy or an image copy of it. But the highlight here is the fact that the application is using artificial intelligence and machine learning behind the scenes to extract all this information for you. And there is a lot of information that actually can be extracted from these type of documents, right? So the application is finding the data elements for you and finding all those provisions and grouping them for you in different topics or themes, so you can easily navigate through the results. Now, in addition to that, the application allows you to look for specific things within the contract or the lease, so you can actually save all the queries that you do all the time, and when you are highlighting which ones are your top provisions that you are evaluating and reviewing and validating and so on. So you can always go ahead and review your findings and extract those findings and have a level of information for all of these provisions. Now, we are talking about digital transformation, and we mentioned the fact that part of that transformation is the fact that we have now a digital table that we can consume in different ways. And when I say that, I refer to the fact that now we can actually extract these and make it a consumable table. So what it means to have a consumable table? Well, if you think about it, originally your data was completely unstructured. We were talking about pieces of paper that were then scanned and then were read by the software. So this application is actually reading the contracts for you and is applying all of these techniques to extract all of those clauses and provisions from the contracts, in this case oil and gas leases as an example, for you. But part of the highlight of doing this is the fact that now that data is consumable. So now I actually have a data table that I can consume. Now I have a set of structured data. So let me just change this format of the table so you can see it easily. And here you can have different columns and different rows that are actually providing the structure of this data. And this data, if you think about it, it was originally that piece of paper, and now you have the summary of all the provisions that you were able to find within the contract. You have the structured paragraph that is meaning exactly what you needed, and you also have the hyperlink that is going to take you back to that list within the set of lists that are saved for this specific example. So it's going to take you to that paragraph where you have that provision, and it's going to highlight it for you in the document. So all of that is very nice. It's very cool technology. I have to highlight that, but also the fact that now this data is also consumable in a different way that perhaps you haven't really thought about. And it's because we are not used to use this kind of technology to solve, the typical unstructured problems that we deal with every day. So in this specific example, we are trying to highlight the fact that we are using unstructured data that we can consume in a digital transformed way. And that is kind of a step one for the digital transformation. So we know that this is the big data era, and that the big data era comes into place whenever the data that you are handling is too big to handle in the way that you are used to do so. So if you are an Excel expert, it's going to be a point where you're going to reach a limit. And if we are talking about millions of contracts, for example, and each of these contracts having over 240 provisions for the oil and gas leases use case, well, this is easily going to become a big data problem, right? So this is the opportunity where consuming this data as big data, we can actually evolve into a next stage and show even more insights into it, and have a proactive way to consume this data instead of a reactive way. And this can be applied to really focus on the opportunities and risks that we can uncover. So this is an example of the consumption of this data using business intelligence. So in this specific example, Spotfire is consuming a structured data table to display the information in a slightly different way, but at the same time extremely useful because everything is dynamic. So the fact that you can ask questions and answer questions pretty much in real time in a dynamic way gives you an advantage from the business perspective, because now if you need to know for the group of leases that you have, how many do have a consignment requirement for assignment, for example, or any other provision that you need to ask about, take a look of how this bar chart actually adjusts to your questions. So in this specific case, you can take a look of these 60 and evaluate any other additional information that you may need to. So how many acres they have, what is the document ID, can I actually see if this is an outlier or if it is real, do I have any of those leases that are about to expire in terms of the primary term, or can I actually see if this is a real value. And here is a very, very nice example of the advantages of digital transformation, because when you have digital keys and IDs and things to link tables and things, ways to link systems, you can connect different things to enhance the information and therefore make a better decision, because it's going to be more educated decision. So in this specific example, we were able to identify an outlier from the visual point of view or perspective, and double check it with the actual data source. So when we click here, we see the link for that specific document or contract, and we can find it back into the application and reevaluate if that value is actually accurate, or if we are talking about an outlier, or if it is an error due to the quality of the scanning process or anything like that. Now, what will be a next stage for this? What will be, if we continue with that digital transformation, what will be a natural next stage? Well, by the way, a lot of these industries and have interaction with many other data sources, right? So in the digital transformation, you are thinking about today unstructured data, but before that, we have a lot of structured data. So we are already handling a lot of data sources, a lot of databases. We may have information coming from, WMS systems, shape files, production databases, public data subscriptions, accounting data coming from other sources, and so on. So if you consider all of those potential inputs in terms of what can actually provide more insights into your data, then the possibility of having all of these interconnected somehow, where your question, the question that you are asking, is going to have way more support, because you are not going to have only the information from the one list, but you can also have, for example, the physical location. You can verify that by the area or anything else that you need to do. So in this example, we are actually ingesting the data that provision insights the application provide, and that's where we use the extract possibility after the search. And this is where the application actually gave me as an output a table that I can actually consume, that I can actually export to a business intelligence tool, or where I can actually connect a business intelligence tool using one of the data connections that we have as a backup. Now, the advantage of that is that perhaps we're going to enhance those results with values coming from different sources. So in this specific case, why not to look at land when you actually can localize it geographically? So take a look at your land and your different clauses and provisions, and ask the same questions, but in a visual way. For example, in this specific area, how many of these leases have a consent to assign, or have an affiliate language, or any other question that you need to ask. But part of what we want to highlight here is the fact that the more you know about your data, in a better position you are going to be always. So in this specific case, I am just ingesting data coming from different data sources. If I have a map shape, for example, that has the colors of the shapes being controlled by the provisioning size outputs. In other words, I can actually color by a specific provision or a clause that is coming from my contract. So I can ask if a specific piece of land has an oil and gas lease contract between the oil and gas company and the landowner, where the cessation in production is in place. For example, I do have a cessation in production clause. All of those are being represented in red, versus I don't. All of those are being represented in green. And then I can ask another question regarding this. If I have a data source outside that, but that is going to provide information that is important for A or B decision. Example, I'm going to bring data from a downhole failure database. So maybe a well view or a different database where I do have some downhole failure or production data. And of course, the latitude and the longitude of the well. So I can actually visualize those wells in the map and see where do I have a specific failure, for example. So in this case, I do have some ESP failures, and we know electrical submersible pumps. Those are one of the hardest failures, and sometimes you have to actually shut down the well and stop production. So that actually can be a big deal if this takes too long to fix. And if I do have a cessation in production clause, I would like to know how long do I have before I get in trouble with the lease and I may lose that contract. So those are the kind of questions that actually become more and more and more pertinent, where you have different data sources to support an action or a decision within your business. So here I am connecting everything to provide this output, and the output is telling me, well, I have 90 days to fix this failure and to be back in production, otherwise I'm gonna have trouble with this specific landowner because their lease is being very specific on my cessation in production provision. So this is an example of what it means to be part of that digital transformation. Is actually taking something from the very beginning, which is a piece of paper, and is taking it all the way to a consumable way, applying advanced analytics into it, where you can get into a way deeper conclusion after consuming this data coming from multiple sources. I hope that has been helpful, and please do let me know if you have any questions. You can just post them on the URL of the video.